What about, if we haven't touched on some of them yet, any like major financial mistakes that make it harder to fix later in life? Like obviously the big standout is investing too late. Like we've talked about compound interest aspect of that. Any others that you can think of that stand out?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most common ones for Australians, and it's over investing in the family home, which we've already sort of covered. But if you buy a new family home in your 40s and max out your borrowing capacity and you're not doing anything else, like you don't have other investments or you don't have a decent super balance, then you could come to regret that in the future, I think.
Yeah.
So it's going too hard on the family home and lifestyle, obviously.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that was the point I might emphasize even a bit further with. I was chatting with someone quite wealthy recently. Their home was worth about 10 to 15 million. And he was saying to me that they want to get it out because it's just too much capital tied up in the one asset. And it's giving them nothing. It's like, it's giving them virtually nothing by way of a return. So he's like, he wants to release some of that equity and put it to use, whether it be business or some other proactive investments. But, on the flip side of it as well, Australia does have those, unique and favourable rules where currently the PPR, you can sell it and pay no tax. So you can sort of argue in a bit of a way that it is an investment. And welcome back to the Winners Playbook. Josh here with Billy. Your 40s are often a decade where financial pressures peak. Mortgages, school fees, career pressure, and retirement planning all collide at the same time. Today, we're going to be talking about the financial decisions in your 40s that can have the biggest impact on your future. So we do have a lot to discuss, but it's been a bit over a week, Billy, since we've hopped on. We didn't actually do a podcast last week, but what's been happening on your end? What's the latest? There's obviously lots going on in the markets. I don't think the market knows where it's going to go at this point in time. We've seen it come up in the last few days, and some of the things Trump's been saying on what is his social media platform called again? Truth Social or something?
Truth Social, yeah.
Truth Social. Some of the things he's been saying are absolutely wild, but what's your read on some of what's going on in the markets?
The share market is desperately trying to look beyond this crisis. I think that's why it's it hasn't really corrected massively, has it?
No.
Don't know if it's cracked 10% through this whole period in terms of a downturn. So the market's desperately trying to see the other side of it.
Yeah.
But clearly it's there's so much uncertainty, and Trump's just the biggest wild card ever. So I don't know. I mean, I suspect we'll be okay. Like I think all the doomsday stuff in Australia in particular about oil supply and all that stuff, I suspect we'll be fine, and we'll probably just throw some extra dollars at the problem to make sure we have enough supply here. And at the end of the day, like Iran and the Middle East and so on, I mean, how long do they want to keep that strait closed? Like obviously that's an important source of revenue and prosperity for them. So I feel like we'll get through this one. I don't think it's the big sort of crash scenario, but it's certainly very entertaining. And I'm an expert now on Australia's oil supply, how many days we have, and reading all the data and all that sort of stuff. It's fascinating.
It's pretty interesting when you don't realize certain things until like it's this crisis happening. It's like whoever spoke about like the Strait of Hormuz or however you pronounce it, like, and then this happens and it's like, wow, there's so much focus on it and the things that you learn and pick up. I actually heard yesterday that I think they're looking at Iran was looking at proposing like making it like a tollway for ships going through and charging like $1 per barrel or something like that. And then I think the US was going to say like try to split it with them or something. It's just, it's just wild.
Trump said, yep, this is a joint venture, but I'm not sure if Iran had agreed to that.
Yeah. And it's just got
bomb the hell out of them. Yeah, I'm not sure how that would work, but anyway.
No. But hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it doesn't linger on for too much longer. But I don't think you can naturally just put it back in the bottle now, like it's out. And even though they've knocked out however many supposed leaders of the regime, it's just there's a lot of people that are not going to like the West after bombing their country. So how does that, I don't know, how do you actually change that? That's totally beyond me, how you actually fix that problem. But hopefully we do get back to some form of normality in the near future. And obviously our government's coming out and, a lot of talks on things and, work from home and telling businesses what to do, which is always interesting. So it's going to be interesting to see where that all sort of falls and lies because, the government not doing business really any favors nor themselves. But yeah, we try to not get into politics on the podcast, of course. But we have moved into the new office, Billy, which is exciting. We dropped into the new office and everyone was in there as of yesterday. What are your thoughts on the new office setup so far?
Yeah, it's exciting times. It's been a while since I've had to relocate offices, so it's always a bit unsettling. But yeah, it was a good vibe. It's a good vibe. It's all freshly fit out, plenty of space. I've got an entire spare level sitting there.
Plenty of space.
So there's all sorts of wild ideas going around what we'll do there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. And obviously not to just rub your face in it again, but it's a nice 8-minute walk from my house. So I was pretty happy with that.
You're
pretty handy in the oil crisis too. So.
Yeah, you're not lying. No, I'm a little jealous, Billy, but I'm going to contain myself because I don't think the wife's going to get back on board with me moving close into the office anytime soon. But I will chip away at the idea. Don't you worry. So there might be a time on the podcast where I do announce I'm moving back into the area, which I would love to do. But look, it's actually not that bad. I left last night. It was reasonably late. I think it was like 7:20 or something, which is not a normal time I leave, mind you. But I think it took me about 35 minutes, which wasn't too bad. That's obviously no traffic, and obviously kids are on school holidays, aren't they?
Yeah.
So probably in the best possible time. But yeah, getting in, because I get in really early as well. Generally, on the days I come in, I leave say 4:15ish. So I can dodge all the traffic on the way in. There's no problems. Just the going home, which is the painful one. So yeah, it beats you down after a while, that traffic. So I tend not to think of you and your 8-minute journey walking in. So
yeah, there's also the problem is your partner thinks you're going to be home more, and your manager thinks you're going to be at work more. You can't do both.
Yeah, I know.
And you can't blame the traffic either way.
Yeah, no.
So we get that text, hey, when are you going to be home? I can't be like, oh yeah, the traffic's bad, it'll be half an hour. She knows it's only 8 minutes.
So true. Yeah, the margin for error decreases, doesn't it? You kind of you got no escape. You got no sort of escape.
Traffic lights took a bit longer to change this time or something. Yeah.
Too good. Yeah, I remember when I moved in originally, and I was I think I was about maybe 15 k's out of the office in Mount Waverley, and but my view there is I just wanted to work more. So not everyone probably thinks like that, but I was like, look, I want more time right now because I want to work more. We didn't have Leon at that stage either, so I was able to do it. But yeah, buying back time it's definitely underrated, I think, in terms of doing certain things and moving, closer to possibly your business or whatever it may be, to get back more time, even if you're not using that time for work, but just so you have more time with the family.
Exactly.
Underrated move, the value of doing that. For sure, that was a real big one for me a couple of years ago. But yeah, lots going on all fronts. I actually, I had a problem with my ankle. When was it? Last weekend. I was doing some works out the back with my brother, and we were digging out we're sort of trying to do like a pool house near the pool, and he had his excavator in. He's got a concreting business, and digging it all out, and we dug up like this bull-out mound, and I didn't see it at the time, but I felt like this bad sting on my ankle, and then I looked down, I couldn't find anything, and I seen one of these like big black bull ants. And I was like, damn, I think that little bastard just bit me. And then my whole ankle and everything swelled up. It was pretty savage. Like I didn't even know at the time they're venomous. So yeah, anyone listening, look out for those big black bull ants, because it stung. It felt like bad at the time, but I didn't think of anything of it. And then it like started swelling up and left like this big red rash. So I was a little bit worried for a second there, but it's I had a cankle. You know what a cankle is, of course, don't you, Billy? I had a pretty bad cankle for a while, but yeah, look out for the black bull ants. Anyone listening in, they're terrible. They do hurt when they bite. But maybe we jump into the topic anyway. Talking about financial pressures, what's going on in your 40s. So you're generally going to be going into your peak earning years. And I was actually looking at some stats earlier between ages of 45 and 55. As per the stats, is generally when you're in your peak earnings years. That's obviously not for everyone, but for most people following, a general timeline of what one's life would then be. But if we talk a bit about the financial pressures, and they're often peaking around your 40s, I wouldn't mind sort of talking a bit about why. Like, what are some of those factors that are generally occurring at that point in time, Billy? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's peak earning years, but it's usually peak outgoing years as well. So
yeah,
and because you're earning more, you feel like for a lot of households, like you feel like you're entitled to, I'll do some nicer holidays, I'll get a nicer house, or buy a car, whatever. But the reality is you've got usually kids, a mortgage, And then you're also sort of thinking, yeah, I want to have a nicer lifestyle now as well.
Yeah.
And so then for a lot of households, it doesn't feel like you're actually getting ahead or you have more.
Mm.
So there's that. And then I've experienced a bit of this as well. A lot of people in their 40s, you might have a parent who needs care or needs attention or needs help.
Sure.
And you've got kids. So it can be a lot. And then you're in peak earning years. So often your work's a bit more, more on the line at work as well. So you can feel like you're getting pulled in a few different directions. And I think it's been pretty consistently noted as one of the toughest periods of your life in your sort of late 40s, that sort of range. So
Yeah.
it's a tough one.
Yeah, and I think in your 20s and for some part, I think your 30s, you can actually get away with some mistakes as well because you have time on your hands, so you can rebuild. Whereas I think when you start getting into your 40s, it's like, the next decade thereafter, you're starting to eye off your possible retirement and things, and so those mistakes, that margin for error, that window of time is definitely starting to shrink. I always think about it kind of like a bit of a runway. As well, when you've got that larger runway, it's a bit easier to sort of lift off. But as that runway is decreasing, it's like it is putting a bit more pressure. Well, it's not putting a bit more pressure. It's definitely putting more pressure on you to make it happen. And the more time goes on, you lose the benefit of compound interest as well. So if you don't start stacking those, those good decisions in those early years, and then you start, in your 40s or maybe your 50s. You're not really going to reap much of the benefits of compound interest and the compounding of all of your investments. And if you look at any compound interest calculator, really the magic doesn't start really kicking in to probably 10, 15 years down the line of that consistent investing. So yeah, the compounding of your mistakes, I think can really can really set you back. But what about if talking about like what doing well, like what would you then, if we try to answer, there's obviously a lot of pressures, but if we look at like what would doing well look like, you think in your 40s, what would be the things you might have under control, or what do you have? What does your life look like, you reckon?
Doing well. Yeah. Well, it's hard because in your 40s and 50s, sometimes there can be like a reset, which you don't plan for. So it could be a health event, a relationship ending, a business failing. So I don't want, if anyone's listening who is experiencing any of those things, like that can happen, right, to anyone, and you can get reset.
Yeah.
But failing that, if you're lucky enough and you haven't had those things happen, by the time you're in your 40s, you want to have built some sort of asset base, right?
Yeah.
A decent super balance, some equity in some property, equity in some investments. You want to have started to build a bit of asset base so that the compounding can really start to kick in. And ideally, you're in or you're heading towards some peak income earning years so that you can really make faster, massive progress on building that asset base. That's what you ideally want. But like I said, with the caveat that there can be a bit of a reset if one of those big events happens to you.
Mm. Yeah, I remember looking recently at someone was telling me about the 7-year cycles that people go through. And, in your 40s is typically ones, and I've seen it countless times now, actually, from people in their 40s, weirdly enough, like some of those key big events that you were saying have then occurred. So there's definitely something to it. And the point I was going to touch on as well is, when you're in your 40s, I think you do, to be fair, you still have time. So I don't want it to be all doom and gloom. Like 100%, you've still got time. Like when we talk about long-term time horizons, we're looking at 8 or 10 years plus. Like you still have that. You can still, even up until that point, if you hadn't really made much of yourself from a financial perspective and you're nailed down for the next 10, 15, 20 years, you can actually still carve out a really good future for yourself. So I think there's still a nice runway at that point in time, but it's just the decisions do start to get a bit more important at that end of the spectrum. And I think the family home that can probably be a real big trap as well. Like you said, that's when you're looking at people are looking at upgrading homes, and everyone's kind of got their careers established and the kids are there and schooling, and then that whole comparison thing starts coming in and you're seeing others. And I think that's the biggest part you got to definitely watch is
Yeah.
How many people have you seen just constantly, upgrading their family home and taking on like massive mortgages, all of this bad debt. And there was a point I was going to touch on a bit later, relying upon your family home to, for you to live comfortably into the future. It's not going to do it unless you're going to downsize, like unless you're actually going to sell the property
Correct.
at some
Unless you've
point
got a
and
very
do
high value family home, which you're prepared to
yeah.
sell in the future. And Joel, I've started to get, I try to hide the fact I almost get annoyed with new clients now if they're in their 40s or 30s even, and they say one of their main goals is to pay off their home loan.
Yeah.
I actually get annoyed now, whereas I used to be like, oh yeah, that's a good goal. That's a standard thing. We should all be doing that. And now I'm actually annoyed, especially if they've got an $800,000 loan. I'm like, okay, so we could chip away at this thing for 20 years and do nothing else and just watch us slowly. And that's your strategy. That's it.
Yeah.
So you're going to spend 20 years just watching that like very slowly. And then like the house is getting older. So then you need you need to a renovation, you get sick of that house, you want to buy another house. Like it's not, your whole plan should not be pay off the home loan.
Well, what about the priorities then? Like, so what are the plans are? If you look at the main ones, obviously mortgage, which we're already touching on, you're going to probably have some kids' expenses in there and investing, figuring out which way you go, which path you go down, and which one you start chipping away at. Where would you typically start?
Yeah, so it's not one thing. This, I guess, is the point, right? And certainly not just pay off a giant home loan because it'll just be a miserable journey, And maybe it worked for previous generations when the loan sizes were way smaller relative to income, but now it's not. So the point is you want to do more than one thing. So yes, you want a cash reserve, right? You want some cash in your offset account. But we want to be investing. And as we spoke about before, we want to grow our asset base. So that's not just your home, that's home, investments, super balances. You might do some investing for kids. Like you might own it. If you're a business owner, you've got a business. So there's lots of different things that you can build up over time and benefit from compounding. Whereas if all you do is pay off a home loan, you're not really benefiting from compounding.
No, not at all. And
in terms of paying the home loan, you can pay that off in one go in the future, right? By selling part of your investments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you need to get a bit of a plan around like, when does the mortgage go or how you're going to deal with it? Because if you actually are going to do like a downsizer, which is pretty common, the kid's going to move out, at some point, maybe in your 50s, and then you're going to need a smaller home naturally at that point in time. So I think it's actually about having some sort of a game plan of when the debt's going to be going down, but not necessarily putting all of your energy in towards getting the debt down at this point in time, because that's where superannuation can come in and you can use that to clear out your mortgage at a later day, which sometimes I do with planning with clients as a part of what the planning is. You maximize super, get the tax effective benefits of it compounded in there, which is pretty much the best tax effective structure to invest in Australia. And then from 60 onwards, you release what you need and clear out the mortgage from there. So what about superannuation? How do you throw super in the mix in your 40s? Because when you're in your 20s, focusing on super is quite easy to go, well, look, I probably don't want to focus a great deal on it. It's still important, but it's like such a long-term time away from being able to access. But you're in your 40s and then you're looking down the barrel of maybe 10, 15 or 20 years, and that's closing in. What are your thoughts around super?
Yeah, I think super becomes really important in your 40s because when you're, as you say, if you're in your 20s or even early 30s, you're thinking super's accessible in 30 years. Like that's an inconceivable time frame. When you're over 40, speaking from personal experience, 20 years is a very, very conceivable time frame. And that's not saying I'm retiring in 20 years. That's just saying you can get your super at 60, regardless of retirement or not. So you're in your 40s, so you've got 10 to 20 years until you can access super. That's a good period of time to benefit from compounding. It's one of the most tax effective things you can do to throw a bit extra in there. And it's a bit of a plan B. It's locked up. There's asset protection there. The money's invested and it's compounding, and you're going to get access to it in that time frame. And it's forced saving too. Like you can't stuff it up. Once it's in super, it's stuck there. So I think it's really important once you're over 40.
Yeah, and I think with that as well, this is where you got to get really clear on what you think you're going to do with your your future life. And this is where I was actually having a good conversation with a guy in his 20s yesterday, which I don't work with too many clients in their 20s, but this guy was like earning a truckload of money in his 20s, like pretty successful. And, trying to think about that long term, it's like when you're thinking 30, 40 years out, like who knows actually what they want and what they're going to do. I think you need to know the direction of what you're going to go in, but trying to pinpoint that exact destination, I don't know. Like I'm not a big believer in that. I think you should have a vision, but that vision is going to change naturally, along the way. But when you're, I think when you're in your 40s, I think you definitely want to start getting clear on what that vision will be, or what the exit plan is going to be, or what retirement may look like. Because if you are happy to work through to say anytime from 60 and beyond, super might be your best bet in terms of where you should be investing, with the major downside to it just being the lockup of your money. So you want to be really set on what you're going to do. And that's why I'm saying it is really important at this point to then start thinking about what do you truly want your life to look like, and when do you think you may retire, or what will retirement look like? Because I have some clients who are well and truly set on working until they're after 60, and they're happy to do so. They have no intention of stopping before 60. And it's like, cool. Super might actually be our best bet to then where we're going to be investing a lot of our time and money, or not really necessarily time, but money moving forwards, as opposed to if someone wants to, get some flexibility in their 50s, we might be focusing on a lot more on non-super investing. But you definitely want to get clear with it, because you don't want to put all this money towards your super, and then you get to, you're 40 and then you're 53 and you're like, oh, I wouldn't mind starting to pull back from work now. It's like where you've locked all your money away inside super and you can't touch it to 60 on the assumption the government doesn't change the rules between now and then. And I don't think they're going to change them to make it easier to get access to super. If anything, they'll make it harder as the years go on. But I think you do need to get really clear on it, because super might be your best bet. Because if you're a high income earner and you're getting taxed at 47% on every dollar over 190K, you definitely a nice little tax arbitrage there if you're utilizing super as your main investment vehicle.
Yeah. So like when I say it's important, I'm mostly talking about the 30 grand a year. If you've got 500 grand in the bank, you're not going to throw it all into super at 42 years old.
No,
that 30 grand a year is very valuable for the tax saving, and then the compounding of that money if you do that every year for 15 years straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And particularly if you have a low balance, like if you're in your 40s and you've only got 200 grand in super, or 100 grand or something, which can happen, then it's like, okay, now we really need to start to, try and use that 30K if you can, at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what about if we haven't touched on some of them yet? Any like major financial mistakes that make it harder to fix later in life? Like obviously the big standout is investing too late. Like we've talked about the compound, compound interest aspect of that. Any others that you can think of that stand out?
I think it's one of the most common ones for Australians, and it's over investing in the family home, which we've already sort of covered. But if you buy a new family home in your 40s and max out your borrowing capacity, and you're not doing anything else, like you don't have other investments or you don't have a decent super balance, then you could come to regret that in the future, I think.
Yeah.
So it's going too hard on the family home and lifestyle, obviously.
Yeah.
You may have done that all through your 20s and 30s. And now it's time to go, okay, maybe we need to not just spend every single paycheck the second it comes in, and get a plan in place, because we don't have forever now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that was the point I might emphasize even a bit further with. I was chatting with someone quite wealthy recently, and I think their home was worth about 10 to 15 million. And he was saying to me that they want to get it out because it's just too much capital tied up in the one asset, and it's giving them nothing. It's like it's giving them virtually nothing by way of a return. So he's like, he wants to release some of that equity and put it to use, whether it be business or some other proactive investments. But on the flip side of it as well, Australia does have those unique and favorable rules where currently the PPR, you can sell it and pay no tax. So you can sort of argue in a bit of a way that it is an investment, and you're going to sell it down the line and pay no tax. But yeah, tying up a lot of capital in one asset like that, which doesn't pay you anything whatsoever. And that's where it's like, is it a good asset, or good debt or bad debt? If you've got money on your home mortgage, you can kind of argue it both ways, but it is not tax deductible, and it doesn't pay you any sort of income. So it doesn't tick all the boxes of being a good debt example. So it would fit in that bad debt. But then Australia is different to other countries because you can sell it tax free. So
it's definitely can be a key part of your plan, is having a really high value family home and loads of equity in that, and then just selling it tax-free in the future. That definitely can be a part of it. It's
Yeah.
more so if you, let's say, buy a family, you're in your 40s, you buy a house for 1.5 mil, you borrow 80%, you've got a huge loan, and you're not actually like, you don't really want to downsize from that. Like you're living
Yeah.
in the area
Yeah.
you want to live. It's not a
Mm.
massive, it's not a ridiculous 6-bedroom house or something. Like if you don't want to downsize and there isn't like for downsizing to work, you need to like the value difference between the two properties has to be quite substantial.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to sell a 1.5 mil house to buy a 1 mil house is not going to, that's not going to fund your retirement.
Yeah, and emotion's a big driver with anything property, and that's the problem. Is a lot of people put their emotion into it, and it sort of fogs and clouds their judgment. But look, that's when good advisors can come in and actually give you that sort of impartial opinion, and no emotion tied to it whatsoever. So it's a good point to mention. And what about if we finish on really like the habits in your 40s that make the biggest difference longer term? What would be your go-tos there?
Yeah, this is a big one. And I was talking to a prospective client about this morning. It's progress over perfection. So it's actually
Yeah.
taking action.
Yeah, totally.
And with how scary markets and the media and everything like that, how scary everything is at the moment, there are people who actually have cash and they're scared to deploy it anywhere or do anything because everything seems too scary. So, and they'll regret that if they don't ever take action. So it's progress over perfection. Like it doesn't have to be a perfect plan. You don't have to model everything out and follow it to the dollar, but you need to take some action and have a bit of a plan. So that's one. The other thing I don't know if this is answering that question or not, but I wanted to mention this because I've started to see, especially a lot of guys in their 40s who have had good careers and some of them just hate their job.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'll retire as soon as I can. And they're like 45. And you think, and you look at it on paper, what they've got, and you think, well, that's not going to be possible. So, look at your career and what you're doing work-wise, because you don't want to just be hating your job for another 15 years and then hopefully retiring the second you turn 60. So maybe a big change is needed in your 40s.
Yeah, well, life's short. You never know when your time's up either. So you don't want to fire out looking down the barrel of not liking what you do for 10 or 15 years. Like I can't fathom,
You'd rather go take a career change, earning less money, starting a business, taking a bit of a risk, a measured risk.
Yeah.
So that you can hopefully get to a position where you're not desperate to retire at 60 and then just hate your life for 15 years until that point.
Yeah, well, you look at like a third of your life, say spent like in office or at work. So you got to enjoy it in some aspects, or at least the people you're on the journey with. But I think those are really two good points because, the typical ones of obviously investing, checking in on your net worth every year is a good one as well. Like if you haven't done this before and you're in your 40s, like seriously, sit down with yourself or your partner and take all of the assets that you've got. Probably don't worry about the cars and things, just your investable assets like cash, super, property, etc. Put them all on one side, total that. Put all of your debts and liabilities on the other side, and then take your assets, take away all of the debts or liabilities, and have a look at what that number is as your net worth. And then if you wanted to get a little bit more scary, strip out your home on there as well, your family home, and look at like what investable assets. Yeah, it is. So, and it can be a good reality check, but it's a really good start to sometimes you do need a bit of a punch in the face in a way to get moving. But yeah, I think that point, if I look back over the years of, the successful clients I work with or the ones that didn't work out, and I'm not sure what they would be doing at this point in time, but that ability to actually take action is such a critical step. You see so many people in life that just, they're so, not risk averse, but they just analyze things too much and they're just losing time and money. And I've seen it with a couple of clients that eventually actually came back and worked with me after a few years. And, they literally missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars of gains by not taking any action. So I think that's probably one of the biggest impediments to building wealth is that just analysis paralysis and overthinking everything. It's like, oh, what if we did this or what if we did that? And then they end up taking no action. Like it hurts when you see people like that have a lot of potential. I've seen some people, some clients lately they're not working with me at the moment, but I can see that trait in them. And it's a hard one to get someone to cross that bridge when that's just innately sort of how they are as a person, and because it's costing them money, and it's going to hurt them and their family, but they're just sort of wired in a way. So it's
It's also patience too, like, because we've also seen clients where they do take action, right? They start investing in something, and if the investment doesn't perform well in the first 6 months, they go, nah, back to cash. They take the loss, back to cash. It's like, dude, zoom out. Like, if you're 40, you've got 20 plus years. It doesn't matter how the first 6 months goes. Like, it's all part of the journey. So having patience and being able to see the bigger picture is a big part of that taking action as well. Like, you take the action now, but then you need to just sit on it, review the plan once a year. Don't get too stressed out about what's happening week to week.
Yeah, and that's why I think accountability partners are huge in it. And that's obviously what we do a lot as advisors with our clients, is that accountability of, like, with all of the noise of what's going on, it's like, no, hey, like, this is working, you're making good progress. I've seen some clients yesterday, lots going on, like different tax bills popping up, they're selling properties, and they're like stuck in so much noise at the moment, and they're going to be retiring in a couple of years. And I just had to tell them, like, guys, like, you're good. Like, you actually are setting up for an incredibly comfortable retirement. It may not seem like it right now because of all of the noise of what's going on, but zooming out from me looking outside in, you're good and you're comfortable. And I think sometimes people just need to hear that, as opposed to just they're in their own head and like, oh, I don't have enough or this and that. And again, working with someone who can give you that objective opinion. Another underrated point I would say is having, it doesn't need to be an advisor, mind you, it just could be someone else in your life giving you an objective opinion like that. Highly, highly underrated. But before we finish out, Billy, any other notes or important ones on your end?
No, I think we're well covered here.
Well covered. Well, we might call it a wrap then. And we're going to be in the new podcast studio in the coming weeks, which is really going to be good because we're just shooting this, of course, via Teams. So we're going to be face to face with each other in the podcast studio in a few weeks when we do these podcasts, Bill, which is going to be exciting.
Well, yeah, I was already thinking I'll need to update my wardrobe, get my hair cut more regularly because it's going to be scary seeing us in high definition on YouTube or whatever. So
going to be good.
Yeah, a bit of preparation required, but yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be good.
Looking forward to it. And of course, guys, if you're getting value about what we're talking about, 5 stars, Spotify and Apple. And if anything resonated today and you want to chat with any of the advisors, you can jump on the website and take a pic of any of the advisors, and it always come through for a 15-minute chat, which is of no cost. And we can figure out if you even need an advisor in the first place. But if not, Billy, we'll leave it there. You enjoy the weekend, mate, and I'll see you in the office on Monday.
Cheers.
Disclaimer. The information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal circumstances. Please head to the show notes if you wish to book in a free 15-minute call to discuss your personal situation.